Chapter 25. Something Old, Something New. Christ Church, Old Town, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia Colony. 17 days later. Mid-morning, Saturday, June 21st, 1738. The weeks leading up to the wedding come and go like a summer breeze, and now William and Mary's big day is upon them. Standing in the heart of old Frederick County, Bebe watches from the street as hundreds gayfully cross the threshold of the new Christ Church, Old Town's newest pride and joy. Each, like Bebe, dressed in their finest Sunday attire. All gathered in honor of two of their beloved residents, 38-year-old William Bruce Albin and his 23-year-old bride, Mary Elizabeth Bruce, as they stand before God and exchange their vows. Snuffing out his pipe, he tucks it into a pocket and joins the herd, slowly funneling through the ornate stone archway covering the beautiful handcrafted double doors of the Gothic Revival single-story brick cathedral. As he enters, he spies the bride's family in the front pews to the left. Sarah, brothers James, John, and George, George's wife Ann Littler Bruce, sisters Ann and Margaret, and her husband Richard Carter. Sitting beside him talking are his brothers Joseph and James, with friends filling the remainder of the pews from front to rear. On the right side of the sanctuary, designated for William's family, he spots his wife and daughter sitting in the front pew. In the pews around them are the McCaney, Cochran, McGregor, and Dean clans, with the Calverts behind them, as well as George Hollingsworth, William McMahon, Jeremiah Smith, Lewis Neal, and the wagon train leaders Joyce and John Height, who appear to be sitting with their families. Filling the remainder of the magnificent church with its beautiful wooden beams and tall arched windows are the countless others whom the betrothed have come to know during their time in the Shenandoah. Seeing so many familiar faces warms Bebe's heart, especially since most of them are he and Berta's friends as well. And while he recognizes most of their faces, there are three he does not. An older man sitting with the woman Bebe assumes is his wife, and another man whose appearance brings him to raise a brow. For oddly enough, he bears a striking resemblance to the groom. He is clad in buckskins from head to toe, with a great big bushy beard and long graying red hair neatly slicked back in a ponytail. Meanwhile, in the back room, the groom is taking one last look at his suit in a mirror. Feeling confident, he pulls down firmly on his frock, gives himself a nod, and heads out to the sanctuary. Alone at the altar, he scans the crowd, for like everyone else, he is awaiting the arrival of his beautiful bride. Just then, the Reverend John Gerard joins him at the altar and begins to speak. "If I may, at this time, please draw your attention to the back of the church." As all stand in turn, he adds, "Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the bride, the lovely Miss Mary Elizabeth Bruce." As ushers swing open the doors, a golden glow cascades down the center aisle, from the doors to the altar. Then, as if in slow motion, Mary and Sir John gracefully step into the light and magnificently glide down the aisle. Beaming from ear to ear, Sir John is dapperly clad in traditional Scottish attire, the colors of his clan on full display as he proudly escorts his daughter with head held high. But he is a mere backdrop to the beaming bride, the cascading light casting an angelic aura about her as she floats past friends and family. With all eyes gazing upon her, a buzz fills the sanctuary. In all her champagne glory, she gracefully strolls down the aisle, her kilt-clad father proudly at her side as they stride together arm in arm. Although there are no ribbons or bows, fancy frills or flowers adorning the beautiful new church, Mary, with her superbly crafted dress, beaming smile, and sultry golden locks, carry the moment as she gracefully strolls to the altar. Never has Old Town beheld so royal a sight, evident by the wealth of compliments being whispered around the sanctuary. As she and her father arrive at the altar, Mary and William gaze at each other with admiration, tearing up and smiling nervously. The Reverend peers at the bride and groom with a nod and begins. "Who giveth this woman to be taken in holy matrimony?" Sir John, who was standing behind Mary, turns to his wife in the first row pew. She smiles, and he turns back to the Reverend. "Aye, her father, Sir John Robert Bruce the First of Aberdeenshire, Scotland, and her mother, my Lady Sarah Caroline Perel Bruce." Kissing his daughter lovingly on her cheek, he takes her hand, placing it gently in William's. Stepping away, he joins Sarah on the front pew, listening as the Reverend continues. "Marriage is an institution for the procreation of children, and to avoid fornication, and as a cure against sin. It stands as a pillar for mutual social order, for comfort, and for the help that the one should have of the other, both in sickness and in health, prosperity and adversity." "Bloody hell," the burly buckskin stranger mumbles, earning him glares and dirty looks from the people in the pews around him. He whispers, "Sorry." At the altar, the Reverend turns to the groom. "William Bruce Alban, will you have this woman, Mary Elizabeth, to be your wife, and thereby love her, comfort, honour, and keep her, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, keeping solely to her for so long as ye both shall live?" William nods confidently. "Aye." Then he turns to the bride. "Mary Elizabeth, will you obey and serve this man, William Bruce Alban, love, honour, and cherish him, both in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, keeping solely to him for so long as you both shall live?" Smiling warmly, she nods. "Aye." Addressing them as a couple, he continues. "Repeat then after me. To have and to hold." Together they repeat each phrase. "From this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love, honour, and cherish, and for the wife to obey." They laugh at the last one, then repeat it. The Reverend gives them a smile and continues. "Until death do we part." As the couple repeats the vow, he turns to the groom, who alone repeats, "I do thee endow with all me worldly belongings." The Reverend commands, "Bring forth the rings." William, not having a best man, and Mary not having a maid of honor, turn to Sir John, who walks up and hands them the rings. With rings in hand, the Reverend says, "William, place the ring upon Mary's finger." As he begins placing the tiny gold ring on Mary's finger, she sees it is not the one he had originally given her. Overcome by its delicate beauty, her face lights up, and she covers her mouth with her right hand. As he slides it on, her eyes shift back and forth between her handsome bow and the stunning ring, and she breaks into tears. Before continuing, the Reverend allows Mary an opportunity to regain her composure. "Mary, you may now place the ring upon William's finger." Wiping a tear from her eye, she places the band on William's finger. Looking up, she finds him gazing at her with tear-filled eyes. As she mirrors his gaze, the Reverend Gerard continues, "Heavenly Father, it is with great joy that I present this couple to you, so that we may recognize them as one in your eyes. Bless and guide them, Lord, as only you can. And we thank you for that here and now in the name of your precious Son. Amen." "Amen" echoes from the pews from front to rear. The Reverend leans forward. "Turn and face the congregation." As they turn, he continues, "In the book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13, It says all things can be done through Christ who strengthens thee. So, unto you I say, go now as one, with Christ in your hearts. For through his love there is nothing you cannot achieve or overcome. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. and Mrs. William Bruce Albin. And with that, the bagpipes sound, and the couple is showered with rose petals tossed by 4 little girls from the congregation, each in their Sunday best, with crowns of flowers and ribbons about their heads. As the petals flutter over them, William and Mary turn to each other, blissfully embracing in their first kiss as husband and wife. As they embrace, cheers rise up from the pews and the bagpipes play louder. As their lips part, they slowly open their eyes, capturing the other's portrait and storing it with their most precious of memories. They exchange a smile, and a tear rolls down Mary's cheek. William catches it with the finger and brings it to his lips, tenderly kissing it. As the cascade of petals intensifies, they sneak another kiss, then William takes his bride by the hand and they glide down the center aisle, the sounds of cheering and bagpipes filling the air. They are smiling and waving at their loved ones when William spots a familiar face. And when the man leans back, he spies a female face from his past as well. As the couple lock eyes with him, William pats himself twice on the heart, and they respectfully bow. As he and his bride continue down the aisle, they both spot the elephant in the room, a huge, burly man, dressed in buckskins and smiling from ear to ear, like the cat who caught the mouse. Mary squeezes her husband's hand. "'Tis that your brother?" William shakes his head, laughing. "Nay, 'tis an old friend, I think." As the congregation follows them outside, they are showered with more clapping, cheers, and rose petals from every direction. With everyone watching, William guides his bride up to and past the awaiting carriage, leading his spirited bride instead to the hitching post, where he unstraps JJ, mounts up, and reaches out his left hand. Mary smiles, then gives her father a wink before taking her husband's hand and swinging on to JJ's back. And with one arm around her husband's waist and the other waving goodbye, William gives JJ a nudge and they tantivy off to the Deans, where a hogmanay-like celebration awaits. Dean Family Farm, just outside of Old Town, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia Colony. A short while later, late afternoon, Saturday, June 21st, 1738. Of course, the first to arrive are the guests of honor, followed closely behind by Sir John and Sarah. As William helps his new bride to the ground, champagne dress and all, her parents pull up and they come together for a private moment before the rest of the guests arrive. Smiling like the proud papa that he is, Sir John extends a hand to his new son-in-law, while Sarah embraces her daughter with a joyous hug. Sir John shakes his hand firmly. "I want you to ken how happy we are for you. Me daughter's chosen well, young squire. When we arrived at Doc McCaney's after coming off the trail, she were in a bad way. But when you swept her out of that wagon, I saw the change come over her, and since that moment, I ken you were the one. As such, you've been part of the family since the day we arrived. And now here we are, and I'm glad. I only wish your family could have been here to share it. I ken they'd be proud." "Thanks, Sir John, but in a way, they've been here all along. You see, there's something I never told you," William says, looking the 3 of them in the eyes. Perplexed, they look on as he continues. "First, I kinda haven't shared a lot about me folks, and I wish to apologize for that. But the truth is, talking about 'em is, well, difficult." "No to worry, young squire. We understand," Sir John says, patting his shoulder. William nods. "But, if I may, there's a little something I'd like to share with you now." The 3 of them exchange a nervous glance, and Sir John turns to him and nods. "Go on." "You see, me da's name is Robert John Albin." Mary and her parents exchange another glance. And me ma's, if you can believe it, is Sarah. Mary lets out a sigh. Placing a hand over her heart, Sarah gasps, while John Robert, open-mouthed and stone-faced, breathes. You mean our names are... Aye! So in a way, me parents have been here since the day you arrived. Sarah and Mary are crying tears of joy now as William continues. Of course, I had no way to ken at first, but it soon became clear. God guided us here, all of us. And in case you didn't ken, Sir John, Miss Sarah, since the day we met, you've filled an empty place in me heart. The way I see it, the good Lord sent you to me on angel's wings, and I love the both of you. The Bruces are moved beyond words. Upon hearing his confession, Sarah wraps her arms around him, embracing him as if he were her own, and William feels his mother channeling through her, her spirit as real and present as if she were actually standing there. As she pulls away, Sir John throws him a wink, just as his father, Robert John, would have done. In his heart, William knows his parents have been there all the while. As their guests trickle in, the Dean's barn and barnyard quickly fill to capacity. And while friends and family celebrate with food, drink, song, and dance, the newlyweds stand inundated by a long line of well-wishers, each coming one by one with congratulations and words of encouragement, not to mention gifts. Much thanks, Stephen. Megan, William says before turning to the next person in line. As the Cochrans step away, the next well-wisher steps forward. As they come into view, there is a brief pause before both parties step into an earnest hug. Oh, I'm so happy you could come. 'Tis so good to see you, both of you, William cries. And we are honored to be here, William. As they part, the man pats William's arm, adding, Not to mention, Martha would never let me live it down had I not. He gestures to his wife. Right, dear? Playfully swatting her husband's arm, she says, I'd no sooner miss our Samuel's wedding. Tears welling, William and the woman fall into a hug. Mrs. Davies, God bless you. It's been too long. I'm so glad you came. Oh, we wouldn't miss this for the world. Speaking of Samuel, is he here? No, he wanted to come, but his father insisted he stay home and continue his studies. Teenage boys, you haven't much time to raise them up before they're racing into the world to make their own mark. Now, wipe those charming eyes of yours and introduce us to your bride. All the while, Mary has been watching their tearful reunion. From the stories William has shared about his journey to the Shenandoah, she has some idea of who these people are. She steps forward as William turns to her. Mare Bear, these are me dearest friends, Mr. David Davies and his wonderful wife, Mrs. Martha Thomas Davies. They came all the way from Delaware to be here today. Mary's suspicions are right, and she is moved by the fact they traveled such a great distance just to be at their wedding. She steps forward, taking their hands in hers with a squeeze. Mr. and Mrs. Davies, 'tis such a pleasure to finally meet you. William speaks of you often. Good things, I hope, Mr. Davies jests. Always. We're honored by your presence, truly. And if I may, I wish to thank you for pointing him to Virginia. Had you know, we'd never have met. With a wink, he boasts. I did say Virginia is where his future lies. For once, it appears I was right. As they share a giggle, Martha jabs. Unlike when you dismissed him on the morning we met. Mr. Davies cringes, but William comes to his rescue. 'Tis funny. I didn't remember that. For which he earns a playful slap on his arm and a forgiving smile from Mrs. Davies. Come, David. Let them greet their guests. We'll talk more later. As they all exchange another hug, Martha whispers in Mary's ear. 'Tis lovely to meet you, dear. William is blessed to have you. Several minutes later, the greeting line finally winds down, and just when they think they have greeted every guest, William turns to find a tall, burly-bearded, buckskin-clad frontiersman leaning against the barn alone. When they make eye contact, the man pops off the barn and starts moseying over. As he approaches, William gives him a squint-eyed stare. "Jonathan?" "In the flesh, warrior hunter," the man replies as he walks up, arms wide. "Lord almighty, I thought that were you." "William Bruce, you old trapper you. 'Tis good to see you." "Aye, and you as well, brother," William says, slapping his old friend's back. After a hearty hug, Jonathan steps back, taking in William's fancy suit. Tugging at his shirt, he says, "You should have worn buckskins. Is that silk?" William glares at him with a raised brow, and he winks with a smile. "Congratulations, brother." Turning to Mary, he bows, left arm high in the air. "'Tis a pleasure, m'lady. Jonathan Brady, at your service." Mary giggles, and Jonathan straightens himself. "Forgive me, Miss Mary. I were never much good with formalities." Leaning in for a hug, she replies, "You're doing just fine, Mr. Brady. After all I've heard about you warrior hunters, 'tis good to finally meet one. I were beginning to wonder if it were all true." As they step away from their hug, Jonathan says, "Oh, 'tis true, especially the part where you fell ass over elbows into the frozen drink." William raises a finger. "As I recall, we all fell into the drink, and you were shivering like a little girl." Jonathan laughs. "Nay, that were Jeremiah." And with a wink he adds, "And for the sake of all parties, I hope you found what you lost that day." Mary leans in close to his ear. "I can confirm that will no be a problem, Mr. Brady." A moment of awkward silence ensues, then Jonathan breaks into a belly laugh. "Oh, William, you've a live one, brother." He bows to Mary again. "I like you, Mrs. Alban. You're just the sort this one needs to keep him in line." "And keep him in line I will, Mr. Brady." "Oh, I ken you will, Miss Mary. Now, what say we grab a pint and share a toast?" "William, we're getting pints. Care to join us?" "After you, m'lady," William replies, ushering his new bride and old friend towards the bar. Tipping back their mugs, William says, "'Tis so good to see you after all these years. I'm glad you're here." "Aye, it's been too long, brother. 'Tis a shame Jeremiah could no be here as well." "I were going to ask." "And why did he no make it?" "Because he's off in the bush, that's why. You ken Jeremiah, always off on another adventure." Then with a tip of his mug in Mary's direction, he adds, "But enough about him. To your lovely bride. May the good Lord bless her with the patience to put up with your Scottish-Irish arse." The threesome tap their mugs and throw back a swig. Margaret Dean is playing her clavichord in the background, with Mr. Johnson accompanying her on fiddle. And filling the air with his sultry Scottish vocals is Stephen Eugene Cochrane II. Throughout the party there are toasts, cheers, and voices raised in song. And as the festivities progress, the Alban wedding party quickly tops the list of Old Town celebrations. And with McGregor's finest freely flowing, everyone is singing, dancing, laughing, and laughing some more. Suddenly, the music stops, and so does the dancing. As a hush falls over the party, all eyes turn to the edge of the barnyard. Standing there in silence, in the glow of the bonfire, are 7 Shawnee warriors standing tall and proud, each ornately adorned in his finest tribal attire. Without speaking a word, they part the crowd like Moses through the Red Sea and boldly make their way to the center of the yard, Skiagunsta and Sanawa leading the way. They are the same 7 warriors William met his first morning in the Shenandoah 9 years before. Everyone silently watches as Skiagunsta stops and, clasping his hands together, addresses the gathering. "William, Makwa, my brother of 8 winters, and Mary of Bruce, we are here to honor your union." Having learned their language, Doc McCaney interprets for the crowd and they applaud. Skiagunsta looks at the crowd stone-faced, then continues. please accept these offerings, that your union be so blessed." With a wave of his hand, the 5 trailing warriors disappear behind Jeffrey's cabin out of sight. As the crowd anxiously waits, Skiagunsta scans the party with curious eyes. Moments later, each warrior reappears with an unskinned, fully dressed white-tailed buck over his shoulder, antlers and all. The proud Shawnee leader waves a hand over the 5 bucks. "Makwa, Mary of Bruce, these we bring to honor your union." Doc translates and the crowd breaks into applause. And somewhere in the group, Jonathan is whistling repeatedly. With a slap of his fist to his heart, the crowd quiets, and the intimidating warrior continues. "The Great Spirit has blessed us with 5 bucks. May the spirit of each live on in your 5 sons. May they be healthy and strong, and grow to be honorable warriors like their father." As Doc translates his proclamation, Skiagunsta turns to Mary and bows. She smiles warmly with hands over her heart and nods. As Doc finishes, everyone claps and cheers, giving Skiagunsta and his warriors a rousing ovation. The proud warrior nods nobly, acknowledging the crowd. Then he signals his men to take the deer around to the smokehouse. As they carry the bucks away, he, William, and Sanawa approach each other, meeting in a 3-way brotherly embrace in the center of the barnyard. Arm in arm, their foreheads come together as the people continue to clap and cheer. As they separate, pats on the arm are exchanged, and the warriors melt into the crowd as they are handed food and drink. Standing in the middle of the yard, surrounded by everyone he knows, William basks in the blessing of old friends and new, white man and Indian. He thinks about Ireland and how much this reminds him of good times shared with family there. Lost in his thoughts, something in the tree line catches his eye. As he tunes out the party, 4 figures appear. Stepping through the crowd, he walks towards them, but he stops when he sees who it is. As the tears come rushing back, he smiles, and Senior removes the pipe from his mouth with a nod while patting Little John on the shoulder. Standing between his grandfather and Da, Little John smiles at his grandfather, then turns and waves at his big brother. Beside him, their father looks on proudly with his arm around Sarah. Smiling warmly, she pats herself twice on the heart and blows her eldest son a kiss. As William reaches up to catch it, Senior and Robert John flash proud smiles, nodding with the tip of their pipes. Wiping a tear away, he whispers, "I'll love you forever." Just then, his bride comes up from behind him, sliding her arm around his waist. Kissing him on the back of his neck, she whispers, "And I you, young squire." Feeling the warmth of her kiss and hearing her sweet voice brings William back to reality, and he turns to face her. Wrapping her in his arms, he picks her up and spins her around. She screams joyfully. As her feet return to the ground, they gaze at each other's eyes, basking in the moment. Slowly, their cheeks and noses meet, each gliding softly against the other. With the warmth of their breath guiding their lips, they come together in a long, loving kiss. When they finally come up for air, William happens a glance over Mary's shoulder to find his loved ones are no longer there. He takes a deep breath and smiles, then takes her hand to rejoin the party. As he does, the tiny gold ring on her finger reminds him that will never be true. For so long as he carries them in his heart, they will always be there. Epilogue. With their wedding party still hopping, William and his new bride saunter over to their wagon to the sound of hooting and hollering. And just as he did on the day they met, he swoops Mary into his arms and places her carefully into the wagon. As he mushes the team, the crowd cheers, throwing sawdust in place of rose petals. As they drive through the craziness, the couple waves their goodbyes until they are finally out of sight. Finally alone, Mary wraps her arms around her man, holding him as they follow the cart path home for the first time as husband and wife, where together they look to build their legacy, and William looks to become his family's first American father. Following their wedding, they settle into their beautiful timber frame home, and although their farm is miles from the Bruces and Bonners, their daily lives remain intertwined. When not busy, William, Sir John, and Bebe continue to hunt, fish, and work on projects together, their families often breaking bread or gathering to work on something, the men with their projects and the women with projects of their own. Meanwhile, Sarah and Berta become the best of friends, working together to help Mary transform their cabin into a home, all with the thought of tiny little feet soon to be running about. The Albin Farm, 7 miles west of Old Town, Shenandoah Valley, Virginia colony, 17 months after the wedding, a cold November morning, 1739. Mary sits on the edge of her bed, clinging to a bucket held between her knees, bent over it retching. Across the room, Doc McCaney waits for her to finish before turning away from his notes. Telling her face, she sighs. "Oh, make it stop. I've nothing left in me." Doc turns to her. "And, this has been ailing you for how long?" "For a bloody fortnight." "Ah, uh-huh," he says, closing his notebook. "Oh, what? Am I dying or no? Because it certainly feels like it." Doc laughs, prompting his patient to withdraw from the bucket wide-eyed. With a wry grin, he removes the unlit pipe from his mouth. "I'll say this. The outlook is no good." Mary's head tilts and her eyes widen. "You see, lass, for thousands of years man has sought to cure to death. But sadly, he has yet to find one. So aye, in that sense, Mary, you are dying." Saliva still dripping from her lips, she stares at him wide-eyed. "But no to worry, lass. We all are, dear. But no today." She shakes her head. "So, I ain't dying?" Doc shrugs. "Nay, but you are with child."